Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Cup. I am so honored today because I have Tommy with me. Tommy G is the CEO of Tide 55 Digital Marketing. Previously, he worked as a life coach, personal trainer, and gym owner. He is a husband and father of two. Thank you so much for being here today, Tommy.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be here.
Absolutely. So I would love for you to kind of dive into your journey in a nutshell of how you got here today, like all the ups and downs, but we'll dive a little deeper in a minute.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'm just like you. I'm just like you, and I'm like you listening or watching. I'm a human being doing my best. I'm a warrior of life, with an idea of what's possible and enough courage to give it a go. So it all kind of began straight out of college, which for us in the UK, I think I was 18, and I jetted off to New Zealand. I had family over in New Zealand. I thought I'd go and have a little bit of life experience, see what it's like out there. My auntie actually owned a gym, so I wanted to go and get some experience working in her gym before starting at a gym in my hometown in the UK. I ended up staying for a year and a half. Ended up staying there for a year and a half because the country really won me over. It's a beautiful place, but I saw too much opportunity, so I stayed and ended up working as a personal trainer in Auckland City, which is one of the biggest cities in New Zealand. There aren't many, by the way. And then from there, I kind of got inspired as to what was possible. And I think that maybe was the first like little step outside the comfort zone, because at the time, I couldn't even cook rice. I was pretty inadequate as an adult, to be honest. So it very quickly helped me understand what you have to do, how hard you have to work, how much you have to believe in yourself and back yourself to get even just a client on the gym floor. So taking all that back with me, started a business, which was a personal training studio. This is back in 2009. Very quickly, that became a fully fledged gym. Then it became two units, two big units. We had good time, 8 good years of having that, as well as being a personal trainer, as well as coaching clients and running personal development events. And then the pandemic came. And when the pandemic came, how this story is supposed to go is, and everything became difficult and everything was, but actually things were already difficult. Things were already really bad. I'd managed to get myself into a bit of a muddle and things were really problematic around me. But at the same time as all that happening, I had to put on this brave face for everybody and sort of pretend everything was okay. So when the pandemic came, it just gave me a little bit of breathing space. I could sit there in my garden, with a cup of tea, very British thing to do. And I could, listen to the birds and look at the sky and think, what do I got to do here? I knew I had like 8 weeks to 12 weeks to sort it out. I thought if I didn't get it done in 8 to 12 weeks, then I'm going to be in a bad place. I'm going to be really stuck. Yeah. So I knew I had some time, but I knew also I needed to move quickly. And I think it took me 2 weeks before I established a new business, Tide 55. And I knew that I always done my own marketing. And I was very interested in marketing. I'd always wanted to give it a go, but almost like needed a reason to move out of the fitness industry, out of the life coaching, out of the personal development, because I was so in it and I built a bit of a name for myself. I was quite established, but I always wanted to try other things. So it gave me the reason, the ability, the permission almost to go and do that. And so I went all in on that. And here we are, 2 years later, got a small team here, an awesome team. We work with so many great clients, different companies, helping them with all kinds of marketing, from social media to emails to ads, through to making graphic design and posters and all kinds of things, whatever they need, really. And I still stand here not knowing much. Okay. One thing to understand is everybody is somehow blagging it. Okay. Everybody is somehow fixing the plane as it flies. And do not ever let anybody tell you otherwise, because we're all just trying to do our best and we don't know what that is. That's why we have to try it, because we've got to go and figure it out. So that's it. I know it's probably a bit longer than you thought, but that's kind of how we got here.
I love it. No, and I appreciate you just being really transparent about, especially during COVID and what was happening prior to COVID. So when you did have that 8 to 12 weeks to really reestablish what you wanted to do, what was that process like for you, like on a mental level, your mental health?
It was really hard because I'm someone who likes to avoid, I'm like that dinosaur in Toy Story. I like to avoid confrontation, unless that confrontation is on my terms, right? So what I really didn't like about it was that I built this beautiful problem. I had this big gym with great staff, great people that were emotionally and physically invested in being there, teaching classes or being a part of the gym team. I also had these members, right, that they loved the place. They love the place. They love coming. It's part of their life. People have met their partners here. You know, people had met their best friends here. You know, beautiful things had happened in these four walls over that sort of 8 to 10 year period.
Yeah.
And I was sort of torn because I was kind of struggling to accept that I had to move on for the sake of everybody, versus turning my back on them and taking something else away from them. Because don't forget, everything was being taken away from us at that point. Yeah. Right. You're not allowed out of your house. You're not allowed to see your family. You're not allowed to do this. I'm going to take that away from you. I'm going to take that away. And like the little glimmer of hope that people had of going back to their normal lives was very much starting to diminish. And I think taking, you know, the place they love to work out away from them was really difficult to get my head around. But I also then had to look at, and I think this is quite good for people listening in the entrepreneurial journey. You've got like the peripheral people in life. You've got the people who might be your customers or your clients. Believe it or not, they're not the inner circle. They're the peripheral. You might think they're really important. Yes, they are, because you can't exist if you don't have them, but they're the peripheral. The inner circle are your family. They're your friends, your family, the ones that see you at your worst. And I think for me, it was like looking at that situation and thinking to myself that if I don't put myself first, then I'm not putting them first.
Right.
And I care deeply about them. And then it was all about, from that point on, it was all about how to do it in the most integral way. Yeah. Because as I already alluded to today, there is still a gym out here. I'm stood next to it because I still have the building. So although it's half the size, I still have the premises because I'm a man of my word and I'm contracted in to pay for this premises. But what I did is I had my most loyal and greatest member of staff that I had in my fitness career. And I brought him in and I said, look, it's time for you to do your thing now. So he now runs his own ideas from inside the four walls. And together we make sure the bills get paid, you know? So that's kind of like where that ended. My wife still works in the gym. She teaches aerial silks. And she still has her silks hanging from the beams here. So it's a place for her to work. My mum still comes in and does a little bit of work here. So that's really important. But meanwhile, we've got this little office here where we run Tide 55 from. So it kind of all worked out. But going back to the original question, it was very difficult to find the right way. So any advice that I'll give anyone that's working through a problematic equation is that it is an equation. All right. So it means that you can swap variables out. You can try different things on. You might not have the answer straight away. You might need to do a few sleepless nights. You might need to do that. Don't shy away from that. That's maybe what's necessary to bring the energy level that you need to figure it out. Right. And I always think back to like, I'm stood here in front of this big light here. And I think this big light here wouldn't exist. It was Thomas Edison figuring out how to get light bulbs to work through electricity. And the story of that is that he's tried countless amounts of times to get it to work. And then eventually it worked. But if he'd have given up after 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tries and attempts, then the world would be a very different place. So, yeah.
I love that response because, you know, I think too, in entrepreneurship, it is that journey where Thomas Edison, it was like 10,000 tries that he tried different ways. And it might not be you, it's just the environment or how you can like look at it from a different perspective, but not giving up after you fall down. It's okay to fall down, but get yourself back up. And that's what I'm hearing from you as well, too. It's just keep moving through that. And I know you talk a lot about mental health and you have a digital marketing agency, essentially with Tide 55. How do you really look at mental health and social media? Because I know you talk about it a lot and it's so important, but could you speak to that?
Of course, yeah. I think it's really important. And I think that we have to stay in check with reality. We have to understand that we can't just lean on sayings and phrases like it's okay to be okay and, you know, whatever else that we can kind of just lean on. But really, we have to understand that it's an evolving topic within ourselves. Just like physical health, mental health is an aspect of our well-being. And of course, just like physical health, you can have disease, and in mental health, you can have disease. But then in physical health, you can have just being in bad condition, right? You can have impact injuries. You can have fatigue-based injuries, and that's also the same for mental health, I believe. Now, I am not a doctor, so I'll put my hands up now and say so. But I believe I prefer to look at it like that, because then I think that people can maybe understand that there are some things that maybe medication is the right answer. Maybe there's something that you need to go and see a specialist about to understand and to improve. But there are other things that are probably bigger, wider spectrum of things that we can sort of make better and help ourselves by remedying them with habits and behaviors. And our environment shapes that as much as our environment shapes our physical health. If you wake up every morning and you eat 10 donuts, you're going to put on a bit of weight.
Yeah.
You're going to, and you're going to feel whatever you want to feel in connotation to how you feel when that happens. And it's kind of the same with like mental health. And I think when we simplify it like that, and you think, well, if you wake up and you spend an hour looking at the news and scrolling through social media and getting like triggered and jealous and whatever else, then what's that going to do over a month, over 6 months, over a year? In the same way as the 10 donuts for breakfast is going to make you fat, what's the scrolling every morning and getting sucked into the news narratives going to do for your mental well-being and mental state? So yeah, that's what I think of it as a topic, I guess, as a philosophy. And it won't be for everybody, but I think that's the great thing about it. We can all have our own opinion. But in terms of the digital stuff, I think that one of the biggest challenges that we've got, especially with our future generation and maybe the generation after, is this relationship that we have with technology. Technology is a tool. Social media is a tool. This is a tool. What we're doing now with this camera through Zoom, that's all a tool. So there's choices involved because it doesn't live for itself. We apply it. We take it and we use it as a tool. Yeah. Just like we would use a potato masher. Okay, that's a tool. Like a potato masher. But what we're kind of doing, figuratively speaking, is we're walking around at the moment with a potato smasher, smashing ourselves in the head with it, because we're not using it in a positive way, right? And we're going, oh, why does this hurt so much? Why are my potatoes still hard and my head hurts? Because we're not using the tool in a positive way, not in the correct way, because maybe there isn't a correct way, but at least in a positive way. We're not using that utensil in a positive way. And I think that the work that we do at Tide 55 at the moment, we're in sort of phase 1, which is get to know the enemy. Get to know where these problems are. Get to know how bad marketing can work in a really bad way and can manipulate people, and understand the nuances behind these tools when they're getting used in the wrong way. To be able to then understand what we're up against, I guess, and then do a lot of good in future years. So that's kind of where we're at with it, because we're only 2 years old. But at the moment, we're having that as in our minds as to what we're looking to make an impact, a positive impact. We also work with positive companies, and we've parted ways with companies in the past that maybe don't share the same values as we do, whether that's in their way of doing business or whether it's in their products, literally. So we're trying our best to make this area of business a more positive and transparent place.
I like how you navigate with also being just so aligned with your values, your core values, and how that represents the companies that you represent and work with. Because I do think when you're so aligned with the missions too, it really does have that positive impact. And I would love for you to share 1 or 2 success stories you've had with some of your clients recently or in the past as well when it comes to marketing.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not going to bore anybody with well, we got a client that does this and they ended up doing all these things, because you can fill in the gaps. But what I will share is perhaps something that people can relate to, right? Is that when you 100% believe that you can help somebody, you have absolutely every right to get in front of them. Yeah. So what we did with one of the companies is a big company. They're our biggest client, but they're based just over the road, and I would drive past their. They built a new HQ from out of the ground over a 12-month period. And I'd drive past it every day to go and get my morning coffee, and I'd see this building just rising from the earth, starting to take shape. And I thought, oh, that's really impressive. They're a really positive company. They're really going for it, And one day, I just went out, stood in front of their HQ, because I tried to email them. I tried to get through to them, and it didn't work. So I stood in front of their HQ, and I got my phone out and I recorded a video, and I said, I'm stood outside your HQ right now. And the reason I'm stood outside is because, and I just explained to them what I thought they were doing well and what I thought that they could improve. And then I said, if you would like to understand how I may be able to help you to improve that, then please reply to me. And then I sent that video as a link in an email with the subject line "stood outside your HQ." That was the subject line. So they're like, who is this lunatic stood outside, right? The thumbnail was like me, like stood like this with their like HQ out there. Now I didn't hear anything for like 2 weeks, but then the email came through, and then the next day I'm in their office, and then we sign on a deal that ends up being really good for us and great for them. And that's the thing, because you could listen to this now and go, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to go and stand outside loads of businesses and make loads of videos. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because I did my due diligence on that business every day when I drove past it for like a year. It was in my head for that long, and I just saw these opportunities. I knew we could help. I knew we could do something for them, something great. And they had a hole in their business for us. We then came along and filled that hole. And it doesn't work unless you absolutely can authentically, transparently deliver on what it is that you see as the opportunity. If you try and spam everyone with that technique, then you'll get a bad name for yourself.
Yeah.
You'll feel empty because you'll just be like, doing all these things and none of them are working. So that's something that I can share, is that when you 100% believe you can help somebody, get in front of them. Get in front of them, because they need to know about you, because they need what you've got.
Right.
And if you don't get in front of them, how could they possibly help themselves?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I was sharing. And another thing on perhaps the flip side is everybody, well, not everybody, but from experience, most people I've seen, including myself on numerous occasions, when we need money, when we need revenue, when we need business, especially when we're starting out, you do tend to bend the rules a little bit, and you might just take on 1 or 2 clients or 1 or 2 contracts that are not ideal for you. Now it's okay, because what that is it's a compromise.
Right.
You're either compromising on price, or you're compromising on time, or you're compromising on energy, or you're compromising on your values, or maybe all of them. And you do have to do it a little bit. I'm not going to like pretend to like go, oh, you shouldn't work with anyone unless they 100% fit your values, and oh, you shouldn't work with everyone because you should know your worth. Sometimes you've got to cut deals. Sometimes you have to. If you want to get a momentum and you want people to know about you and you want to build case studies, you kind of have to do a little bit of that. But the key is knowing when to stop. Because if you get addicted to that, right, because it can get quite addictive to say yes all the time, then you'll eventually cause yourself problems and things will start to break. So at some point you have to draw a line and say, right, we've done what we needed to do with that now. Let's now set our standards higher and start making sure that the next set of conversations we have the initial conditions that we expect, rather than that we're compromising on.
Oh, those are fantastic. I love how you just explained them too. Like going back to the first example of like going and doing your due diligence of understanding what the product was, what the company was, seeing them build from the ground up. And you're right, you don't need to be like spamming people by any means, but being able to do something so authentic to you and your brand, but being able to help somebody too, and seeing, hey, this is what I'm seeing. I want to help you. I want to see you succeed. And doing that, I just think that's such a unique way to really catch somebody's attention of like, I really care about your company and I want to see it do well. I'm not here to be like, I can fix this, or because I mean, I get spammed all the time. I'm sure a lot of people do in so many different ways, but the way that you went about it, I think is so unique too. And it's really, I just wanted to highlight that because I think it is important to really understand what the business is that you're like, whatever the client is, customer is, knowing who they are before starting to go after them or like send a million emails, but you did it in such a beautiful way. And I think that's what made it work too. And I love the second example because it's really about understanding, because I did the same thing in the beginning of taking on clients that were not my ideal client, but I had bills to pay and things to do when I was beginning. And this was years ago, but understanding when to stop is so pivotal in that process. It's knowing you need to get a little like momentum, but knowing, okay, I'm ready to move on more to the clients I want, and that I'm going to be serving the best in that capacity. So thank you for sharing both of those. I just like felt like I needed to highlight both of those for perspectives too, because it's on both spectrums as well. And for people to hear that too, because a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm only taking on my clients that are ideal, but you have bills to pay and you're not getting those clients. So it's building that resume in the beginning as well, and understanding there's nothing wrong with that, but the key element is stop while you're ahead. Don't get too wrapped up into it.
Yeah. And also I think is to be careful, because it's slightly off when you start, then it's going to be always slightly off. Now, you got to be careful. You kind of can't. One of my favorite sayings, is you can't have your cake and eat it. I think it's so underused and misunderstood, actually. It's basically, you can't have the best of both worlds, right? You can't look at it and go, oh, it's a beautiful cake, and taste it, because as soon as you taste it, you can't look at it anymore. So with that, right, you shouldn't be complaining about it. You know, and it gets hard. Like for us, it got really difficult sometimes. Oh my God, this is really annoying or frustrating, or, you know, but you've invited that on, and we can hold it. You know, nobody's perfect. It still crops up every now and again for us. But really it's about going, well, we sort of invited that on because, remember, we needed the payment, right? So it's okay. We need to remember that. We need to remember why. And then, okay, cool. Right. Well, let's calm down that ego and go, right, what can we do to help this person, or what can we do to help this client? How can we help them understand? Because they see it way differently to us, because they're never going to go, look, we think we're probably going to email you a bit less because we actually think you're worth more than what we paid you. But they're not going to do that. You know, we're going to approve everything really quickly because we think you deserve better. They're not going to say that. You set it up like that, right? So they've got their own lives to live. They've got their own problems and their own things to do. So yeah, but you summarize those points really well, and it's great that you picked those things out, because it's very important that people, and I think people would really understand that by you just bringing those back up. So yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think, you know, it's about highlighting those things too, because it's not all rainbows and sunshine when you're on this journey by any means. But looking back when you started your journey, your entrepreneurial journey, what are maybe 2 or 3 things you wish you would have known that you know now?
That's a great question. The actual honest answer, which I'm sure many people say, is nothing, right? Because nothing, but let's give people an answer, right? I mean, there's some really obvious things I wish I knew. Like, for example, the local council, they don't go easy on business rates. That's something that I wish I knew. Like when you owe business rates, like you ain't getting out of that, you're paying it. So I guess you could take that and say, right, you need to know all the costs. I would ignore them because I wouldn't want anything getting in the way of my goal, my vision. Which is kind of a blessing and a curse, because I think if it did, maybe you wouldn't do it, and you'd be like, oh, better not, because it might be a bit risky. I've always been quite good at like just figuring out, finding my way through and up and under and through. But that's something that I would say, if I was starting, I would just wish somebody sat me down and go, right, I'm not here to point fingers or to say that you can't do this, but you need to understand these things. So how can we get around these things? Because they're going to come, they're going to happen. So that'd be the first thing. The second thing was like, this is I'm not going to go into too much detail, but you got to be able to say no. And this is different to the point before. This is about starting in business. You need to, like, if you're a people pleaser, or you're somebody who likes to include other people, then you can like make deals and arrangements that at the time they seem like the right thing, but those things can change. Deep down, if you know that it's not quite right, then that is the time to say something. And that's what I mean by saying no. Maybe it's not saying no, maybe it's having a difficult conversation. Because you can't hide you, and if you know it, you'll sweep it under the rug, and you could do that for years, and then it could just explode. We get this a lot in business. You know, I had a situation which I'm not going to talk about, but it was to do with people that were involved at the start of a business, and then how that ended up with those people. And the relationship, the initial conditions, which is what another thing I've said before, but I'm going to bring it up again, is the initial conditions and the expectations. Everything needs to be said out loud. No assumptions, no like holding on to any words in case, oh, it doesn't really matter, I won't say it, or better not, because they might think I'm trying to do this, that, and the other. You've got to talk about it. You've got to thrash it out so that there's no weirdness, because if there's weirdness, that weirdness just festers. And then eventually it becomes like a decay. And unless you've got the right energy and the right reasons to sort of remedy it, it will be a problem. And for me, you know, it was a big challenge, and friendships were damaged because of it. So yeah, that's something that I wish someone pulled me to the side and just said, look, are you sure this is the right thing to do? Or have you thought about this? What about when this happens? But I didn't. Maybe there were people around me that I could have asked. I was only 19, 20 years old, but perhaps I wouldn't have listened to them anyway.
You got to be ready to hear it sometime. But I love that you said about the people pleasing, and it really goes back to communication and airing everything out in the forefront, having contracts signed, like making sure, like what you were saying, the expectations, because I've been in similar situations too, and I wish I would have known that in the beginning. But you're right, it's not holding it in, it's being able to clearly communicate. It might hurt somebody's feelings, but I'd rather hurt someone's feelings in the beginning, not intentionally, but knowing, okay, this is where I stand, this is what I expect. And so it's all aired out, because when you don't have it aired out, you're right, it builds up, it festers, it's like a bottle and it explodes, like you mentioned, of the explosion. And not to like ruin those friendships, but really understanding it's not personal, but it's business, but how those lines can blur if it isn't clearly stated. So I love that you brought that point up, because I think it's so key to anything we do, whether it's a relationship, a business, anything, because communication, it's how we communicate, it's how we get things done in general.
Yes. Yes.
But with that being said, I've so been enjoying this conversation, but we're going to jump into the rapid fire questions if you're ready for them.
Let's do it.
Okay. The first question is, who is your hero?
My hero is it's a really hard question to answer.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I feel like there's too many people that I couldn't choose like a single person. Like my mum, my dad, they massively inspire me. My grandfather, who's no longer with us, he was a big mentor and a real enabler for me. But do you know, like if there was a sort of a variant of myself, that I would choose that version of me that came back from New Zealand, which I explained a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'd just been out there for a year and a half, took the plunge, I didn't know anybody, other side of the world, did it, came home, and I just thought I could do anything. But actually, something really terrible happened within like a month and a half of me being back. That's when my younger brother passed away from a undetectable heart condition. Just suddenly passed away 5 days before his 14th birthday. And everything changed, as you can imagine, from that point, from that moment. But that version of me from there still had enough up and at him, still had enough courage, still was so naive to the world that nothing was going to stop him from doing what he wanted to do. And sometimes I think back to that person or that time and a version of me, and it intimidates me, because I think you didn't know anything really, but that was what made you so beautifully naive, is that you just did it. You had the wind in your sails and you just did it. And I think sometimes if we're not naive and we know too much, we can stop or slow ourselves down through doubt and just through sort of being a bit more fearful towards things. So in a long-winded answer, it would be that raw, naive, still very wounded, but powerful version of me that started all of this. And I do sometimes think back to those times, and I listen to music from back then sometimes as well, and I just get myself back into that come on, let's go like frame of mind.
Yeah.
You
You brought up such an important part, and I'm so sorry for your losses as well.
Thank you.
And I think it's when we know too much, we become a prisoner in our own mind, and it stops us. And you said it so beautifully, of how looking back to where you just went, you just did it, you didn't think twice about it. Maybe you thought twice about it, but you pushed through it and you accomplished so much. And I think that's what allows us to just really go for things, because as we get older, there's more fear that sets in, there's more responsibilities, more roadblocks that we create ourselves. But when we're younger, we just kind of are like, let's do it, let's go. And I think it's like having that inner child spirit of just like, we can accomplish anything we set our mind to, but our mind is so powerful that it could stop us, but allowing ourselves to take a step back and realizing we have the power within ourselves. And I love how you said it as well. So I just wanted to touch on that quickly. Not quick, but
thank you. And I'm sorry that the quick fire answer was probably longer than the other answer.
That's okay. Like I said, I'm switching it up. It's okay to.
We'll try again. We'll get quick now.
So what motivates you to work smarter?
Time. Time. Knowing that if I make things harder than they need to be unnecessarily, if there's no lesson involved, there's no benefit, I'm literally wasting my time. Therefore, I'm denying my loved ones from spending time with me or from benefiting from my output in life. So yeah, time.
Yeah, I like how you said that. So if you were a superhero, what would be your power or powers?
BS detector.
Oh, okay.
I would, yeah, like, so it's more so as the other person sees the little, like I could have like a little radar on top of my head
Uh-huh.
that was like, beep, 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 beep. Like, so if somebody was like BSing, like making some shit,
Yeah.
sorry, can I swear? Can I swear? Oh, I
Yeah.
have now. Someone was saying things that were not true and was
Yeah.
conning themselves, almost, making them lying to themselves. They'd be able to see it because they'd be saying it and they'd go, oh no, he knows and I know now. So it's more about the person saying it, knowing, hey, come on.
That'd be cool. I haven't heard that one. So if you were to share a meal with any four individuals, living or dead, who would they be?
Bruce Lee,
Mm.
Kobe, David Beckham.
Mm.
And you said 4, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be pretty stoked with those 3, to be fair. I think 5 would be a crowd, because I'm there too, right?
Yeah.
The creator of Batman, I think it was Bob Kane.
I'll say that. I
think
know.
it's Bob Kane. Because I think that would be really interesting. I think all of them would be anyway.
That would be a fun table. Very insightful.
Out of those, I think David Beckham's the only one that's alive. But that's interesting in itself, I guess.
That is. That would be a really good table, though, to be at. I think a lot of wisdom. So, what is the most daring thing you've ever done?
Physically, I think I've done a skydive and a bungee jump. I think a bungee jump's probably more terrifying because you are quite literally just saying to yourself, "I'm going to jump into my death now," because you don't have a parachute. There's no there's a bit of rope, pretty scary. That's pretty scary. But I think to be honest with you, going for this transition into this business has been, you don't see the terror or the fear. It's almost like it's chasing you, so you just run forwards. Yeah. But when I then stop for breath and look back, I go, flipping heck, that was scary. Like, if that didn't work, if I jumped and didn't land on the on the ground but fell off the cliff, that would have been bad. So I do think, and I'm by all means, this chapter is not closed, but I think that it's definitely something that I'd hoped when it began that I would be able to look at and think, yeah, if I've done that, I can do other things too and draw strength from it. I'm starting to kind of get to that point now. So yeah, that would be it.
Well, that is extremely daring. And so what is the phone app that you use the most?
I think that I have Video Leap.
Oh yeah.
Right. Which is actually, I probably do use it the most, to be fair, because I use it a lot for work. But that is and for anyone that's making their own content and doing video editing, it's such a great app to use. And I've just got myself a Fitbit, so I imagine I'll be using that app quite a bit too, because I think it's good to know your vitals and keep track of all of your health stuff as well. So, but yes, definitely Video Leap at the moment. I spend like hours on it. I'd rather use that than the computer. Yeah.
It's a little easier, right? Less to carry around or be in front of. You could be anywhere with your phone.
Yeah, and just the functionality is so good.
I believe that. I haven't used it yet. I just recently heard about it. So now you're the second person telling it. I need to look into it.
Yeah.
And what is the last book that you've read or listened to?
So there's this one here that I have with me that I think you can get on Amazon, but it's called Obvious Adams.
Oh.
And for anybody it's a bit of an enigma. It's like very well spoken of in certain circles, in sales circles. But it's a great book that kind of, in a nutshell, it's only small, it's only thin. It's it's basically, I think it's so valuable, this point of view, but it basically says how in sales and marketing, the best road to go down is always the obvious one. And I think that when you're being paid money to come up with marketing ideas and strategies, and you can feel like you have to reinvent the wheel, and that you have to come up with something imaginative and creative and super out there. And I think a lot of marketing companies do that and then waste a lot of budget because they miss the obvious. One of the best things that a client can say to me when we're, talking to each other across the board table, or, in the phone, on a phone call, is, oh man, why didn't we do that sooner? Why didn't we think of that? And what that says to me is that's perfect for us, because I didn't do it earlier. I didn't think of it because I was too busy running my own business and I didn't see it, but I know that it's a great thing to do. And for me, that's like, great, we are right on point with this idea. If it's something like, oh my God, that's a great idea, why didn't we think of that earlier? Beautiful. So Obvious Adams, that's the last one I read. And it's not the first time I read it. I read it a lot. It's only thin.
Yeah. Adding it to my list. Thank you.
That's good.
So if you were to have a movie about your life thus far, who would play you?
I was going to say Johnny Depp then, because I was like, I'm hoping that we'd be able to sort of give him another job. But he's probably too old, because most of my life so far has been
Younger.
But I'll stick with that because he's pretty good. He's pretty good, isn't he?
Yeah, and makeup artists are great. They can make him look younger, or he could play your dad.
Yeah, CGI. Yeah, exactly. I think see you, Darcy. Oh, I think that he can put on lots of different characters, and to be fair, I've probably done quite a few different characters of myself in my life so far, doing different jobs and different things. Yeah, so that might be a good one.
I think so. I think it's a good fit. I could see it. And what is your favorite family recipe, whether it's one you make together as a family or it's traditional?
We don't really have one, but my mum is, she always makes flapjacks. Now, the thing about it, though, is everybody loves them, but I don't know if they're all just being polite or they're actually the same as me. Yeah, there's a bit of a twist in the tail here, because some of them aren't very good. She knows that I say this to her, right?
Yeah,
but some of them, it's like some of them are really great and some of them are just not. And I'm always saying to her, can you just make more of the ones that taste good, please? Can you just make more of the ones that are nice? And she's like, oh yeah, but sometimes it's a bit of a lottery. So, I think before it's too late, I would like her to teach me her famous collection of flapjack recipes, so that I can at least take the good ones with me.
It's good. It's in life, you gotta follow what's obvious of what's good and what's not.
Hey, there you go.
I love it. So if you were to describe yourself as an animal, personality type, style, what animal would you be?
I think so my wife's always saying that if we were cats or dogs, I would be a cat. She said I can be quite unpredictable and change moods quickly. My eyes can turn quickly and into, she describes it as like fierce and piercing. But I can also be super laid back and chilled and just slouch out and do nothing. So we divide our family into cats and dogs. So my daughter and I are cats, and my wife and my son are dogs in their nature, puppies. So any sort of cats and dogs people out there will know the difference in the two generally. And yeah, I think I'd probably be like maybe a tiger would be a bit more cool than just a cat. So yeah, I'll go for that. I'll go for tiger.
Makes sense. I love the differentiation with the family too, cats and dogs. So what is your favorite way to spend a day off if you are not working for clients or anything, but you're just focusing on enjoying your time?
Rarely does it ever happen, but if it was to happen, I would go somewhere completely new, to a different town or a different village or something different, and I would just be there and I'll just see what the wind brought to me and where it took me. I think it's good for us to go to new places because it stimulates our brain to be more aware of things. And I think without having any or having very little normal patterns of play in place, it can be quite refreshing for your energy and for your soul. And I think it's whenever I go anywhere new, I always like to sit and just be, and just like let the world kind of dance and interact with me in a sense, you know, if that makes sense. So I would just go somewhere completely new. It doesn't happen like much. I've got 2 young kids and lots of things to do. But if I did, that's what I'd do.
I love it. Different perspective, different lens. It just helps the psyche. And what is something an outsider wouldn't know about your industry?
That let's go for something that's gonna make a headline here. All right, here you go. That it really doesn't matter how many followers you have on social media. It doesn't, and here's why. Imagine if you had the choice between, bearing in mind that we've got to live in the real world here with this analogy. So say you had 10,000 followers, right? But those 10,000 followers were not, like, we're talking business sense, were not your target market at all for anything that you do. And then you had 100 that were, and every time they saw something from you, it brought you a little bit closer towards a sale. I think most people would rather have the 100. Now, I'm not going to take any answers, any smarty pants answers about, yeah, but 1,000 people might be able to, or sorry, 10,000 people would be able to tell lots of other people. Well, yeah, but they won't because they don't care, right? They just don't care. If that's the case. So I think if we can reframe in our heads that stop chasing followers, like it doesn't matter, just keep doing what you're doing. If you get a follower, celebrate the follower. Don't forget that's a human being. That's a real person. Most cases, sometimes it's not, but that's a real person that's gone, I want to know when you say something. I want to be able to see what you post out into the world when I look at my intimate phone, which is my thing that I'm looking at, my possession, my personal time. Yeah. Because when we use our phones, we use them like this, right? We don't use them like this and show everybody. We're using our phones like this. You know what it's like if someone comes up over your shoulder, you hide it, or you switch your apps off because you don't want someone, because that's your personal time. You're looking at things. So if somebody is looking at your content and they're looking at it intimately and they're taking it in, then that could be worth so much more to you in your business than having 9,999 more people that you're invisible to in terms of context.
Oh, that is a really good,
because you only need one. You just need that one person that could be the perfect person. It could be the perfect person. It might not even be that person's your client, but they might have a key that unlocks this secret door of opportunities because of their position at work. You just don't know. You just don't know.
That's so true. I love that you highlighted that, because I do think so many people get caught up on the follower count where it's not, that doesn't equal follow or sales. And I love that you really put it in. Those 100 people might really be about what you're doing versus the other 9,900 that you might have or want or continue to grow, but it's just continuing to show up as your authentic self. And I love that. I'm going to throw in one more question because I know you're a dad and you're a husband. How do you manage to integrate work, life, family? What does that look like for you?
Oh man, it's hard. I'm not going to pretend I've got the answers because it's really difficult. But what I can share is something that's worked quite nicely for me. I almost come up with a proposal every time I think I want to change or modify my routine. So classic example, I now wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I go do my workout before everything starts. I get a bit of me time, gets my energy into the right place, stops me being all grumpy with my kids in the morning when they wake me up. But instead, I'm responsible for my own wake up. I'm responsible for my own energy. Nobody is taking anything away from me in the mornings for at least an hour and a half. I go and work out, I come home, I get there before the kids wake up, and then I do breakfast. And they get the best of me. Everybody gets the best of me. I feel good because I've done what I want to do, and it's all good. But before I did that, I had to almost, and the reason I say come up with a proposal is because you've got to help your partner understand, right? In the same way as you would like help a client understand how it might be a good idea for you to do this thing, you've got to almost go, look, I want to talk to you because what I've been thinking of doing is this. By doing this, I think it will help me to do these things. It will help you to do these things. What do you think I should do? What a question that is, because too many times, and I know from my own mistakes, too many times when you impose a change on the partner, I'm getting up early to work out. See you later. Like your partner's like, what, how, when, what, who? And you're just causing a problem, right? So if you go, what do you think I should do about it? Isn't that what we're there to do? Support each other. So you end up getting, most of the time, you end up getting a positive, yeah, I think that would be a really good idea. If you don't, then you're going to get a really great reason why it's not a good idea. A reason that maybe deep down you knew already, or a reason that you didn't know, in which case both are good. But that would be my advice. So like, look, it's never easy. Everyone's lives are different. Everyone's demands on time and energy are different, but everybody can take this advice on board. Talk to your partner, talk to your family member, ask them ask them, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? Ask for their advice, because it will put you in the right place.
Oh, I love it. I love that question. I think it can be so powerful and just changes the conversation. And what we were talking about earlier, communication. It's not just in business, but it's with our relationships too. But where can people find you, Tommy? We're going to link everything below, but if you could let us know too.
Yeah, Tommy Gentleman is my name. It's really easy to find me. On Instagram, I'm just at Tommy Gentleman. Same on Twitter. LinkedIn is probably where I post the most, to be fair. So please come and connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search for Tommy Gentleman. If you want to know anything about the work we're doing at Tide 55, it's just Tide 55. So TIDE55.com. And you'll see kind of what our gig is all about on there. But yeah, just come and say hello. And if you have any questions, or even just want to sort of share anything that you think was useful and relatable, then my inbox is always open. But more than anything, like, I would love to know about you as well. So let's connect and see what it's all about.
Well, thank you so much, Tommy, for coming on and sharing all your wisdom. So make sure, everyone, to like, subscribe, comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from Tommy? Definitely DM him as well, because I'm sure he would love to hear it there. But we would also love to see it too, because you might be helping somebody else get a little nugget as well. But thank you so much, Tommy, for all your vulnerability and just being so transparent through this journey today.
Well, thanks for having me. I really, really enjoyed it. And you're awesome at interviewing and asking questions.
Thank you so much. And we will see you all on the next video.